Hi guys, hello. I am here with Greg Maestro and Jim Vieira. And okay, so they wrote this book. It's called Footprints of the God, not to be confused with Graham Hancock's Fingerprints of the God. This is Footprints of the Gods. And it focuses a lot on, well, I mean, okay, basically like giants and the six-finger digit thing. So I'm gonna let them take this away. So welcome guys, how are you?
Good for having us.
Good. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having us on, Nikki.
Nice to
Okay,
meet you
so
again.
I met Greg this last when was that? Like almost a year ago at the
Cosmic Summit.
yeah, the Cosmic Summit.
Yep.
And he's like an AI wizard, so you guys could contact him for AI things because he's like he made this video with Jim where it's, it looks like a
I cloned them.
you cloned him. Yeah. What did you
Cloned
how
'em.
did you get it to be like did you do your own voice, Jim?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
did. Yeah,
voice.
yeah.
Okay, you did the voice. Okay, at least he did that. Otherwise, I was gonna say that's so scary.
Yeah, no, it worked out really well. We were able to clone them. Took some time to get it dialed in. There's a lot of training involved with the AI models and stuff. So, got the voice dialed in using 11 labs, and then we used a handful of different models to do this video. One's like Google VEO3, and we're using Higgs field too, which is a really great application. I recommend it.
See, so he's doing more. He's doing more than just Chat GPT, guys. So yeah, like that's also something you took a look into with him. But anyway, so tell us about like how did y'all meet and how did you guys get in this project of this book thing?
Yeah. I mean, I can lead first. Hugh Newman is our ketamine dealer, so we know him and connected us. I don't know. Yeah, I think somehow we crossed paths and a while ago. And I think I was reaching out to Hugh because I wanted to, because I'm in the witness protection program of ancient mysteries researchers for some reason, because I got a bunch of issues, but I wanted to, create more of a platform, create AI stuff. And he said, "Oh yeah, you got to hook up with my boy Greg." So we started working together. And at first it was like, "Oh, could you tune up this PowerPoint? I got to speak at the Edgar Casey conference or something like that." And then Greg kind of crafted a business plan. We started talking about the book. He had a background in a lot of biblical stuff, a lot of oral traditions. We had a lot of, similar understandings about the past and interests. So we decided to do the book together, which I had been working on for a couple of years previous, gathering information, traveling the world, collecting data. And then we came together to create Footprints of the Gods. And yeah, I'll let Greg
You agree with that, Greg?
explain.
Oh yeah, yeah. It started off really, really simple and small. It went from like a PowerPoint to a website to social media, and when we started digging into the content was just so incredible. Like Jim's really outlined something, just a global phenomena that I haven't seen anyone string together like this yet. So I knew we were on to something really cool. And I've known about Jim for a while. We've been mixing it up for a little while on social media through Hugh, but Hugh's the ultimate megalithomaniac, and he knows all this stuff too. So he brought us together, and when I saw this content, I just knew that there was just so much that we could pull out of it. So we started designing the episodes, wrote 8 episodes for him, no, 9 episodes, storyboarded it out, developed the characters, and just really had a lot of fun doing it.
So after this book, are you gonna change it like into video format?
Yeah, so we've already got the whole thing kind of outlined. So we touched 9 different areas of the globe, and each of those have their own crazy things going on, giants, polydactylism, ancient myths. And so, all these have really larger than life characters. And so I just really want to express that. And the only way you can really do that is with AI. So, I wasn't going to make prosthetics and put on a costume, although I might do that for Jim's birthday party, but not for this. So
Gross.
it's how I'm going to do that too. We'll stop right there. But yeah, there's just so many characters, and that the world hasn't really seen yet. So I took the bas relief of Gilgamesh, right off the wall, and then used Midjourney, for days and days and days, for probably weeks trying to get. Actually, it was months trying to dial that character in, and he came out a whole bunch of different ways. But what we ended up with, I thought was pretty true to the character, and I actually have the same Gilgamesh in his full garb too that you've seen him in on some of those reliefs. And he's got like wings and stuff, and it kind of turned out kind of whack. The wings didn't really match so well, but there's so many other characters throughout history where you can just bring them right back to life, and it's just
Yeah.
super exciting. It's full of all kinds of.
At some point,
I
we're gonna be able to like every religious ancient text turn it into like a instant video that people can watch and like understand better.
Yeah, it's killer.
Yes, that's a good point. It might be a good time to maybe I could jump in and tell the scope of the story so the
Yeah,
audience
go for it.
understands.
Go for it. Because like,
Okay, so polydactylism is a rare genetic condition in humans, extra digits, 6 fingers, 6 toes. Some people are born with it, like a small percentage. But you find in the ancient texts, in the ancient iconography, in the ancient traditions, it is associated with the divine, the supernatural, the malevolent, and giants.
mm,
And the Summa Ipzu is a compendium of 2,800 tetralogical omens found at the Library of Ashurbanipal in 1700 BC. And in it, it showed that the sorcerers, temple priests, in Samaria were obsessed with polydactylism. They wrote about it, they talked about its omen power. The giant of Gath in the Bible has 6 fingers and 6 toes. So what you have is this trait, polydactylism, that may be rare in humans, but it has nothing to do, there is no genetic condition that associates it with giants. So the globe is littered with giant hands and giant feet written about in academic sources that we have compiled in a data set where you hear the story, the giant is named, the giant's exploits are talked about and written down and shared with ethnologists, and they are displayed in rock art and statues of enormous size, 4 foot long feet in Australia. So you have this phenomena where it's not just like this kind of ephemeral story. It is a specific trait associated with giants, the supernatural, and gods. And once again, we have gleaned this virtually all from academic sources, where academics, archaeologists, anthropologists, rock art specialists are saying that, things like it's uncanny. Every time there is giant feet, it has extra digits. It has 6 toes or 6 fingered hands and things like that. And it's in isolated Pacific Islands, Australia, Baja California, every corner of the globe. And this is 10 to 20,000 years old, oftentimes, rock art, statues. And then finally, Ain Ghazal, Jericho, some of the oldest settlements on Earth, including Karahan Tepe, which they just excavated and found a 16-fingered statue.
mm,
And then you have Sayburç, the oldest narrative in the world in Turkey. And the character that Graham Hancock thinks might be an earlier iteration of the Epic of Gilgamesh is holding up a hand, and it has 6 fingers. And the lead archaeologist, Professor Kurul from Istanbul University, said the humanoids always have strange numbers of fingers, digits, never five. So the book is littered with gems like that. Like, holy shit. Like, you have all these very highly regarded academics talking about this bizarre phenomena. And that is the scope of the book and what we lay out. And I felt, this would be my last point right here. I don't want to run on too long, but I think it's one of the greatest assemblages of evidence for an alternative idea having a basis in reality that I've encountered. And it sounds like I'm just talking my game up, but I've been at this gig for like 30, 35 years, writing books, doing shows, and this one is like strikes a chord in me. So that's my rant.
All the sources are cited in the book too. So that's like one of the first things I noticed, that Jim had all the receipts for all this stuff. And I was like, okay, this is not a fluff piece. This is legit. So yeah. Oh, one correction too. When I made that comment about Gilgamesh with the wings, I was thinking about something else, Anunnaki, Assyrian type stuff. So
mm.
two different reliefs there. I forgot. I'm getting involved with a bunch of intellectuals here, so I can't slip up on stuff.
So a
You
non
can't slip up, man.
a non-academic source, I suppose, that would corroborate this would be, the story of the Afghanistan soldiers who went and
Oh yeah.
got killed by the giant in Afghanistan mountains or something, and then
Kandahar or something like that.
Kandahar giant.
yeah,
The
and then
Kandahar giant.
and that supposedly had six digits on their hands.
That's interesting. Yeah, Timothy Alberino, he's like a Christian researcher, and he's been talking about that. He was just on Jesse Michaels, and my boy L.A. Marzulli is another Christian researcher, and I've been on his show, but he was on my History Channel show when we did the Catalina Island episode,
Mm.
and I think, interviewed one of the guys. Was
Oh,
it?
really? You found one. Okay.
The story is that there was one team that got killed in a cave in Kandahar by like a 12 to 15-foot giant, and then sent a second team in. They killed the giant. They put on a massive pallet, took it to Bagram Air Force Base. The belief is it went to Wright-Patterson. They said it was like pale skin. It smelled like death, had red hair, and had six fingers and six toes. Now, that's kind of an interesting anomaly to throw in his story where you have a special forces guy telling a story like that. It's like, in my mind, it might add more credibility. Of course, you got to see receipts, you got to see the giant, you got to see the photos for there to be proof. But that's an interesting story. And there's a lot of those stories in the Solomon Islands that, live giants 10 to 15 foot tall. And if you would indulge me for a second, if I might read two quotes, because this ties into the whole case that we make, is that oral traditions, we've met with lots of wisdom keepers, and I have traveled the world and sat with shamans and wisdom keepers and oral tradition holders. And Vine Deloria was a Lakota Sioux elder. And this is what he had to say. He was a very respected scholar. He was on PBS. He was a lawyer. He fought for Native American rights, but he also talked about the oral traditions that all these tribes had. You can't name a Native American tribe that doesn't have legends of giants. So this is what he has to say. The Indian explanation is always cast aside as a superstition, precluding Indians from having acceptable status as human beings and reducing them in the eyes of educated people to a pre-human level of ignorance. The stereotypical image of American Indians as childlike, superstitious creatures permeates American society because Americans have been taught that scientists are always right, they have no personal biases, and that they do not lie. So he was laying out some heavy hitting insults to pseudo skeptics and debunkers and modern day academics who ignore oral traditions. Who would you rather listen to? These ancient indigenous people closer to the events that are being described, or a bunch of, gatekeeping weasels who basically have violated the first rule of the academic world, which is to ignore the scientific method by losing your impartiality, to not being objective. And we see it all the time. The Flint Dibbles of the world, all these gatekeeping kind of really loathsome characters insulting instead of like, here's the case I need to see to prove your point, to prove your hypothesis. It's not that. It's petty insults. It is portraying people with alternative ideas in the worst light. Insults.
Hmm.
Dismissive.
I'm sure we've all dealt with it, and it's like we're all,
Trying to
respected
say,
people in life, successful people in life, and to get, so that's my point, is that you have native traditions that carry all this power and meaning, and they are ridiculed and marginalized. And the people like us who pick them up and try to validate them are called conspiracy nuts and racists and Nazis and shit like that.
Yep.
So that's the end of my second rant.
And
So,
I actually I grew up in next to this Isleta, this Pueblo called Isleta Reservation Pueblo in New Mexico. And when I would, so this is back in the 80s and 90s, they didn't have an elementary school yet, or so they would send the kids went to school with us. And I loved on Fridays because they would have Native American elders would come and they would do story time with us. And it was like 2 hours or something. It was like a long time. And so we all got to sit in there and listen to like an elder come and tell us the stories. And they very much told us like, you have to pass down things orally because you cannot rely on text. Texts get stolen, texts get ruined, texts get reinterpreted, they get rewritten. they get like you can't rely on like what you can rely on is telling things exactly the way it was told to you because that that has like importance to them. And I remember even in elementary school like listening to all the things being like, yeah, this is cool. But so it's weird that we don't even understand that, but it is true. We could see how much text is just manipulated in our own time.
Well, these guys
Oh, totally.
they'll lose their
Yeah.
grant if they go out in this direction. Like they'll lose their funding, so they have to shelve it. Like there's all
Well,
kinds of stories about
let
this.
me read one more quote to your point before I turn it over to Greg.
That's
This
fine.
is Vine Deloria again. The possessor of the oral traditions had nothing that would encourage him or her to change the meaning or emphasis of the information. People had no vested interest in wealth or prestige by becoming knowledgeable. Vine Deloria. So to your point, it's like this very, very important sacred tradition. And I spent a lot of time with Clifford Mahooty, Zuni elder, who's a good friend of mine. And he would share these stories of giants and tell me he would talk about ancient androgyny and Lemuria and places like that. And it's like, whoa, it's really striking the level of specificity that all these oral traditions carry that in cultures that had little or no contact.
Yeah. It's a repeating global blueprint what these guys are saying about polydactylism too. It's like it's a
Mm.
massive phenomena. It's like a marker of divinity or something.
Okay, so why do you guys think that they they don't want to focus on this?
Hmm.
Like academic wise, I mean.
Yeah, yeah.
They'll lose their funding.
Well,
That's
I feel like, yeah, I'm a recovering Catholic, so I got all these issues. I feel like I'm taking up all the oxygen, but you could go first and I'll give my take, Greg. How's that?
no, it's the same thing. I mean, we've all heard stories about that, and I want to hear yours, Jim. So go ahead.
The It's funny, the ego, I always quote Jonas Salk, the intuition shows the thinking mind where to look next. And one of the greatest things I've ever done was to admit when I was wrong. In fact, last time I was on with you, Nikki, I was running my mouth, being a know-it-all about um, oh, this whole satanic ritual thing. That's just overblown. That's like way out there. And I
Mm.
really felt like, oh no, those elites, they're just boring bureaucrats blowing off some steam. There's nothing untoward going on. I was completely wrong about that. Where the world is run by a satanic cult. Once you read the freaking Epstein files,
Yeah.
so to self-reflect, to see where you have agenda, because I study a lot of metaphysics, Course in Miracles, Edgar Cayce, and I feel you have the ego mind, which is the insane, self-aggrandizing lunatic that makes a lot of noise in the head. Then you have your intuition, which is more your spiritual self. And you see that these pseudo skeptics, these debunkers, they control the narrative. They create hit pieces in The Guardian against Graham Hancock, and they don't even ask for Hancock's opinion or input. They just, they are possessed by their ego, let us say. So it doesn't mean there's a boardroom of these weasels getting together and like we're going to shut it down. It's literally you become engaged in a cult-like dynamic where just like in politics, I'm not going to yield an inch to you. It's not like, oh, Trump, he's a lunatic and he's getting blackmailed. Why is he starting the Iran war? But actually, the tariffs aren't a bad economic policy. It's like there's no middle ground. It's like black and white. And it has infected the academic world where basically alternative minded people are just demonized and called Nazis and shit all day long. And the right has its own cult, but the left wing cult is a atheistic, scientifically oriented cult where it's like, get the booster shots in your eyes, get your monkeypox vaccine, like super. And I'm a moderate, so I'm not taking any side. I'm just saying, once you get in there, that's not science. That's not objectivity. That is not studying data. So you have basically a kidnapped academic orientation by gatekeepers and skeptics and algorithms that weaponize your preferences in the academic world. So I believe that is why they don't approach the subjects because, like, I'm going to UMass tomorrow to teach a class. I'm going to go in the boardroom with all the professors and my friends. And I'm not going to say, hey, I've been really studying this interesting, odd phenomena. I'll catch a bunch of shit and I'll be called a kook. It's just as simple as that. It's like eighth grade shit in my estimation.
Yeah.
But I could be wrong. Could be a panel of of ghoulish figures and the lowest level of the Smithsonian. Who the fuck knows?
Yeah, to go back to your point about the Epstein thing, I kind of blew the lid off of everything that people have been talking about for decades now, and none of us wanted to believe that it was real either. We were throwing up in our mouths like this is not cool. But if you go to justice.gov/Epstein and you scroll down to, I think there's a second search box, it's one or two, and you just type in the word ritual, and you'll see there's like 1,500 results. So I don't suggest anybody really go poking around in there because it'll change you for life. It's not good content to consume. But if you have any questions about if this stuff really did happen, the answer is it's still happening.
Yeah.
And
I
it's
mean,
happened all throughout history. Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think like we a little bit before we started, we talked a little bit about how um I think some of these people in these like cults do know some information that we don't know. Like I think like for example, we talked about how like Ghislaine Maxwell was a submarine pilot and was literally had a submarine called Janet Atlantis and was going down in the Bimini Road and things like that. Like they were on this stuff even before we knew what this stuff was.
Bingo. That if you read the files, dark journalist Daniel Litz, he's been
Hmm.
on top of this for a while. Yeah, I like that dude. He studies a lot of the
He's
casing
good.
material, Steiner. He unearthed all these records. Ted Waite, founder of Gateway Computers, was the boyfriend of Ghislaine Maxwell. He's on the board, or I don't know if he got canned or not, but he was on the National Geographic board.
Shit.
Janet Atlantis, their sub, they're looking for the lost city that Polina Zalitsky found like 20 years ago off the coast of Cuba, 2,000 feet down. And they're talking about getting contacts that they knew engaged in the Cuban government so they could go there. So you have these black magician freaks looking for Atlantis because Edgar Casey's story of Atlantis and Manly B. Hall, Madame Blavatsky, Steiner, is that there was a cult of black magicians, of evil Satanists that spilled over into the Phoenicians and Baal and the Canaanites, and that all
Babylon.
throughout history, their go-to was like child sacrifice,
Mm.
and that is what you read, and it's unambiguous. The entire Epstein files are lidded, not with just like, oh, I had sex with a 17 and a half year old girl or something like that. I'm some CEO. It's like child abuse and child sacrifice,
Mhm.
crazy, crazy stuff. But all the mystics, all the traditions have outlined this all throughout human history. And to your point, yes, they know exactly what the fuck they're doing. They know the rituals, they know how to harness this dark power. And then they tell us, and they're directed to tell us or to portray us as lunatics for studying these ideas.
And Gilgamesh is like the oldest story in the world, and they like I think I don't know if it's in the actual Epstein files but there is like email evidence of,
Oh,
like Hillary like saying something
yeah.
about like oh they found like about the Gilgamesh tombs as if they really did find it. I mean, I think they have them. Like,
Jim, do you think that was
We
the
write
stasis
about that.
chamber?
Yeah.
Do you think that's the stasis chamber? Remember that footage that we had? That
yeah,
like
the
strange
redheaded
looking.
guy.
Yeah, it looks like he's in like a cardboard setting with spray painted with gold, but I didn't think it was real. But
But you know
definitely,
what? I saw that first in 2009 when I was,
yeah.
yeah, like right at, I think YouTube was super new when
Yeah.
I first saw that. And my roommate was a Russian girl, and she was like, "What do you think of this?" And she showed me this. And at that time, there were like four or five. It wasn't just one. There were four or five of these giants in it, and it was like a
Yeah.
lot of footage, like 20 minutes of footage. And I thought it was pretty interesting. And then it was gone. I never saw it again. And then I got brought up like in 2015, and then now, I mean, it's
Yeah.
so weird how things actually do get scrubbed from the internet. But yeah,
Dude,
I
I
saw that
could
one a long time ago.
dude's
I
beard
could
was
tell the
so
story of
luxurious.
Gilgamesh.
Yeah, tell the story, Gilgamesh. Do it.
We write about it in the book. So in 2003, Ulrich Fassbender and his team of archaeologists wrote or was interviewed by BBC, and his claim was that they believe they found the tomb of Gilgamesh by going off of clues in the Epic of Gilgamesh, the oldest poem on Earth. And they highlighted how they followed these clues and they believe that they found the tomb of Gilgamesh. A couple of weeks later, the Iraq war breaks out. They have to leave. There's all the speculation, the looting that took place at the Baghdad Museum.
Mhm.
People talk about stargates. I'm not even gonna, in the past, I'd be all on my, on my throne saying, oh, that's all conspiracy shit or whatever. But I don't know what the hell's going on. I could just tell you
Well, and
what
they
I
broke
know
all
of
the
this.
winged Syrian, like, I mean, Lemouses or whatever. I mean, like, they did a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
destruction of, yeah.
So did the US military go in there and open the tomb of Gilgamesh? I talked personally to Jörg Fassbender, and he said that his team left, but they went back in 2015 and they're doing more magnometer surveys. And to his knowledge, they haven't discovered the tomb of Gilgamesh yet. But in the Book of Enoch, which has the Book of Giants in it, the apocryphal Book of Enoch, Gilgamesh is a pre-flood giant. So he's listed as, a 15-foot tall giant, and we tie him to polydactylism, having extra digits as well in the story. So you have these very interesting, I believe that there's a holographic universe is the way things are, that there's one global mind. So things resonate with many, many people that haven't been brainwashed into a wrong way of thinking, like in the academic world. Like evolution works for most species, but it doesn't work for humans. I believe firmly in the tradition state, otherwise, that we were genetically engineered. So the the archetype of Indiana Jones is the search for the lost hall of records and the proof of Atlantis. That's the true archetype. And that's why people are fascinated with the idea of the lost hall of records in Egypt and the idea of Atlantis, because there is a ring of truth subconsciously in the global thought form. And that's what I feel. And that's why these stories keep coming out now, because they're resonating with basically the intuitive understanding of people who haven't been brainwashed, who have thought for themselves and expanded the consciousness.
Yeah, perfect. I think that's true. So like what part of was there anything that you didn't know already, like that showed up with these six finger things? Like was things like giants, like there was, like when you were specific, because you, I mean, I know you particularly, Jim, have been researching. I mean, you and Hugh did you've done the giants of America and the giants of the UK. So like, I mean, did you do a giants of the world one, or you talked about maybe doing a giants of the world?
We haven't got to that yet.
But eventually you should, because that would be an amazing trifecta. But yeah, like, so is there any new stuff that you found about the when you were searching that you were like, whoa, okay, this is weird? I mean, for example, before we talked, I was like, yeah, I know I've seen a six-fingered ochre handprint, and then we were talked about a little bit about like Chaco Canyon involved in this. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's global, and you also mentioned it's in Australia. I mean, it's
As we wrote the book in real time, new discoveries were coming out. The El Cano find in Panama, like 2 years ago, this hoard of gold and gruesome sacrifice. And what do they find? They find a shamanic tomb guardian that has six fingers and six toes, this little gold figurine. And I noticed it. I contacted the lead archaeologist, and she said, yes, it is a shamanic tomb guardian. And they just found this year, we write about it in the book, a six-fingered shaman in Jerusalem that's 9,000 years old. So why are all these shamans around the world considered divine with extra digits in all these cultures, 9, 10, 15,000 years ago? And in real time, like I said, Ayin Ghazal, Jericho, Karahan Tepe, all these finds keep coming up. What I would say is, I had no idea that every corner of the globe is littered with the traditions, the iconography, the statues, the rock art, the enormity, and the academic verification of all these finds. It's it's you run out of adjectives, and it's I'm not just blowing smoke. I'm too like I have too much shame to like lead people astray. I would say get the book and read it, and if you got a skeptic friend, get it for them.
Yeah. And then Greg, with you, like what shocked you the most about this process and going through all this research?
It's just such an epic tale. Like I've never seen all this stuff come together with a common thread throughout the whole globe. Almost every culture and myth has something with a slight mention of polydactylism. All this cave art and rock art and everything. It's just this story that's just been waiting to come together. I mean, a lot of these findings have been around for a while. It's just putting it all together. So that with these larger than life personalities, and it's just um, it's just a story that's going to just keep growing as we keep discovering stuff. I mean, we scoured the internet, we found a lot of stuff. He's got all these books and citations everywhere. So every mention of this stuff in the book has a source that's been cited. So you can cross-reference the work, and yeah, it's just going to keep growing for us.
So then do you think that like these giants are kind of like Nephilim or do you think that they have anything to do with our engineering, our
Yeah.
human engineering?
Yeah, I think it's the antediluvian race that got wiped out when they corrupted the flesh, which to me sounds like they've been genetically modifying stuff. I mean, you think about it, you got all these characters that are like chimera characters. You got like
Mhm.
alligator man in Egypt, you got frog man there too. You got all these different, the Minotaur. I mean, there's, so many of them. And like, I don't know. I hope it's not, the way it was back in the day, but they say in the end times it's going to be the same as the days of Noah, which means if we're talking about, corruption of the flesh, we're kind of there right now. I mean, when they cloned the first human and the first sheep in 2008, right?
Oh
In
yeah, they've
Italy.
totally cloned humans by now, for
Yeah,
sure.
man. I mean, like, I think I don't want to go there, but I mean, it might be cheap and inexpensive to do and disposable at the same time, deplorable, whatever you want to call it. And some of our pop culture singers, I mean, who knows? I don't want to go there because I don't want to believe that's happening. But man, you start seeing people with their earlobes connected and not hanging, because as you get older, these drop because of gravity, right? So you start seeing these connected on people. It just makes you think, and like there's so much stuff add up nowadays too,
I
but it's glorified on the internet. So I don't know what to believe.
I could throw out Edgar Casey's take on it. He in fact said in Atlantis, um, there were the sons of Belial and the sons and daughters of light of the law of one, the benevolent ones, the star seeds, the wisdom keepers, the beings that you see on the planet now, and that there was dark genetic engineering and they created hybrid creatures. And in fact, in Egypt, they created the temple of sacrifice and the temple beautiful, where they would heal these hybrid figures that you see all over the walls. You see them in ancient Greece, that they were literal uh, creations, genetic creations. But as far as, the global picture, every culture hero, whether it's Viracocha, Fuxi in China, Olokun in West Africa, the Nomo of the Dogon people in Mali, Africa, they are genetic engineers that first create giants. Giants are mostly destroyed in a cataclysm, and then they create humans. So if you read the traditions and you listen to the traditions, to your point, that it's a genetic engineering question, because people say, hey, what about the Denisovans? And I think that's interesting, but this isn't, I can understand if you're a evolutionary anthropologist, you're like, where the hell did giants come from? Like, did they evolve? Like they don't fit in the span of human evolution through the eyes of, a Darwinian evolutionist, which I don't agree with as far as humans are concerned. But they're not going to jump on board very quickly with the idea of alien genetic engineering. But that is what the traditions state. And the giants were the first tradition. Whether it's the Native American tribes are telling us, or in the Bible, Yahweh creates the giants and then destroys them in a flood, or in Peru, Viracocha creates the giants and then destroys them in a flood, then creates humans. It's the same story. So, if you go with the traditions, I'd say right now, if you went with every conspiracy theory in existence and listened to it and believed it, you would be much closer to the truth than if you
And
went
yeah.
to Harvard and learned every fact and figure of the academic world. That's just the
Well,
freaking truth.
and I've been for a long time now, I've been thinking like, I think in a lot of ways we're closer to Lord of the Rings than we are to Star Trek, you know? Like I'm thinking like we have little people, we have elongated skulls. Like I've personally seen the butt head looking skulls. Like we have a lot of different humanoids, and I don't think we just evolved out and just became this one thing that is a human. Like I think it's like Lord of the Rings where it's like they went to a different realm or something, or like I don't think they're all gone, or they're in breakaway civilizations, or like they're in frequencies we can't see anymore. We've like something has happened to where, but like we had, I think, we had like cousins to humans, like, all animals have ponies and mules and horses and whatever, or, lions and tigers and pumas or whatever. Like there was like that for humans at some point too. And we do have like physical evidence of it. It's just kind of like thought of as like all these elongated skulls are looked at as like, yeah, like just there, but we're not going to talk about them.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I think that that goes along with the giant stuff too. You know what I mean? Like there is some giant bones that remain, like the Chinese one with the guy who found like the skull and I mean, they're in the well or something. Like there's and then I think we talked about this last time you were on, Jim, about how like where is the fossil evidence of the bones, and it seems to be like a huge, huge thing about intentionally being destroyed and or they aren't preserved right.
Well, one of the things that we talk about in this book, there's a lot of traditions in England of Cormoran and the Giants of St. Michael's Mount. Greg and I are going there in a couple of weeks with Hugh. I'm doing a conference in May. We're going to tell the story. We're going to film it at St. Michael's Mount. But the traditions are clear that there was like a late Pleistocene era of a different atmosphere, of different conditions of megafauna or megaflora,
Hmm.
and that the giants shrunk down to 7 and 8 feet tall over the last 10,000 years ago or so, but oftentimes they kept their extra digits. That's in the traditions. Now, we've uncovered in our books, in the Smithsonian's ethnology reports, in the Carnegie's reports, an enormous amount of this. And I'm talking like specific femur measurements, not disarticulation, faulty regression formulas, like very obvious that there were 7, 8, maybe 9 foot tall native chiefs, the remnants of giants, if you will. But the giant story is 20, 50, 100,000 years old. So it's really, I do believe evidence will come forward, maybe the tomb of Gilgamesh, but this is a story that is much older. Pre-Diluvian, just like Greg was saying. So you have traditions, you have evidence, but in order to seal the deal, you got to DNA test a 12 or 15-foot skeleton. I get that.
Yeah.
And do
You know,
you think that they kind of slowly integrated into us, like they became like, like they bred into what we are now?
sure. Yeah. When I
Yeah.
was in Paracas, Peru, and I was in Bolivia with Hugh, I saw all those skulls on display, and some of them were like really thick, dense bone, and some of them were much larger than our skulls, not just the elongated part, but the bone structure itself was definitely bigger. And we had a doctor with us, and he was examining some of the skulls, and there's some out there that people have seen that are like faked with plaster of Paris or something, but these had 2 and 4 bone plates at the top. So not the 3 bone plates that we have, but totally different. So what's that? And was that mating with us? And like, is that why people have these different, distinctions, different cultures and races? Like, were they from different places? And I don't know. I mean, that place is littered with huge skulls, though. I couldn't believe some of the stuff I saw there. I saw a big mandible. It's like almost like you could put it around your own face almost.
Yeah, that's a total tell that somebody is not objective. And if an academic looks because they'll get into like Brian Forrester and Elliot Marzulli, they're doing DNA They did DNA testing. Is like, are these skulls literally human or are some alien? That's a separate matter, honestly. The fact is, literally every culture on Earth going back at least 10,000, 12,000 years ago in China has done cradle boarding. Native American tribes, Peru. It is the most bizarre and specific thing you could ever do to a child. And every culture on Earth is doing it for thousands and thousands of years. Cultures that had no contact with each other. It's completely impossible that they dreamed this up and there is no attention given to it. And that's how the academic world works. It just freezes you out. If you talk about, it's like, let's focus on the fact that some people might think this is emulating aliens. Haha, they're idiots, instead of a mature and scientifically driven analysis that in what universe do we live where this can't be a story, where they can't be emulating the gods, or there can't be a culture that shared this information. That's why people have left the academic world or fallen the academic world in droves by the millions. And I say that with a little lament because I work with a lot of professionals. I've organized digs, I've done a lot of stuff in my shows. I'm always working with professionals, but they're the cool ones who you don't hear about, who don't run their mouth like high school girls on Twitter.
Yeah.
They're humble, they're respectful, they're helpful. So I want to highlight that there is a radical cult of debunkers and gatekeepers that are very unpalatable individuals. Many of many of these guys, you see them, on debates or on Joe Rogan or whatever. But it's unfortunate that there's a large section of academics who are pretty cool who get lumped together. But the larger picture is elongated skulls is a great litmus test for somebody's full of shit or not.
Yeah. I mean, and I have a master's degree in art history, and I like my undergrad's in geology and like archaeology and stuff like that. And I never talk about that or boast about that because that has basically that's all that taught me is like what not to look for. And like a lot of times, I mean, just things like carbon dating is such bullshit when you really look into. I mean, like I remember in one of my geology classes, we dated a seal that had died on a beach and like within the last year, and like it gave us results that could be anywhere from like 1 to 200,000 years. So just like not all carbon tests the same, and it's like really a very funny thing that we still use it. And then they're like, well, what else can you use? And I'm like, well, it's you can use the uranium, like how long something's been exposed to the sun or to cosmic radiation. Like there's that uranium, or what is it called? It's anyway, there's other testing you can use, but yeah, I don't know. We
Yeah.
need to figure out a better way of doing it. We can't just keep on going back to this flawed method, and then and also like some of the explanations they have for rocks are just insane to me. It's like I've been obsessed with rocks since I was like a little kid, and then once I got into geology, I was just like, oh, okay, well, basically they don't know what they're talking about so much, and I moved on. I mean, I went through their method, I got their degrees, I did the stuff, but I don't. I eventually you just have to realize like you have to stop giving authority to these things because
Sounds like the
Yeah,
COVID
I think it's
test.
like,
The COVID
yeah,
test.
no,
I
exactly.
mean, who's ruling? I mean, who wields all this power and giving us all these phony results everywhere?
When you go to the doctor, it's good, if you get a compound fracture, that's great. He'll take out your appendix, but he's not going to say, maybe you want to fast, or maybe you want to do a parasite cleanse, or maybe you want to meditate or do acupuncture. There's more integrative medicine taking place. But the allopathic model, it's like that in geology, anthropology, archaeology, where basically the scientists of old were spiritual scientists. Plato, Pythagoras, Socrates, they would go through initiations. They would be connected to the divine, if you will, or their spiritual, intuitive side, where the scientists of today, they're cold, they're rational, they're atheistic. There is no expansive consciousness, expanding awareness. It just is the fact. So it's like you got to do an archaeological dig, you get the professionals in. You want to learn about the mysteries of Egypt? throw in some Edgar Casey and some Arab traditions, and maybe even some channeled material. Who know? I listen to. I have friends who are channelers and psychics, and we talk, and I have sessions sometimes, and I take it in. I don't believe it as is, but it intuitively guides me to shit like this book, where basically every site on Earth I visited, it's amazing. I'm at Palenque. I'm going around the ruins and I'm finding six fingers, six toes everywhere. We descend into the hypogeum at Malta and the six-fingered handprints on the wall in room 20. We're in Peru. It's the same story. So I feel like I'm intuitively guided by that repression of the ego, if you will, to open up to something larger. That's just my take. It sounds a little metaphysical, but that's how the scientists operated in the past.
That's what makes Jim
Yeah.
so easy to work with. He's dissolved his ego, so he's a cool person to work with for sure.
I mean, like most of the people that I mean, a lot, like half of my show is talking to psychics and stuff. I'm married to a psychic. It's not even for me. It's just that's just like if like I was something before I was incarnated here, right? Or at least that's what I believe. So if that's the case, then like there's more to this story than what we're told. And like so many of us are kind of going like, okay, wait, there's some things that don't really make sense. And you can only go with the material, like, whatever. I mean, you can only go with the scientific method for so long, and then you have to like go beyond like what we're able to sense and what we could feel and start looking into there's got to be more going on to like why we exist here at all. And I always applaud like somebody who's looking into other methods of like the art or well basically other things to add to the story of like how we got here or why we're here or what's going on because and I don't want to completely shit on all archaeologists because you do need to have like the fun, like it is expensive and time consuming to actually like uncover this shit. So it's like I almost feel like, you know, I I used to I worked as a conservationist for like a year, like I would redo pots and stuff, right? And but just because I put back together a pot and I glue it together and I get all and I fix it back up to what it used to look like doesn't mean I know any more about the pot than you. You know, it's just I was a glorified janitor for it or something, or like I basically cleaned it up and I presented it back to what its original form was closely, but that doesn't thereby make me the authority on what it was.
It's
Totally, totally. My only beef with the academic world is, like I said, this kind of cult that
Yeah,
shames and ridicules. They don't say, "Oh, maybe Graham Hancock has a, like he'll have to make a better case, and this is what I need to see." But there's a lot of flood myths out there. Who knows? No, it's not that. It's like this vicious attack that it's like, whoa, you kidding? We're just talking, we're theorizing about gods and giants and floods. Who gives a shit? You know what I mean? Like, I think it's an important part of our human history, but it's not like, some damaging, terrible thing to
so
talk
it's not
about.
like a
That's,
racism thing, right? Like,
yeah,
yeah,
yes, that's my beef.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I really,
But
yeah.
if anything, I think the Flint Devil thing just like boosted alternative history up more because I mean,
Mhm.
but on the other hand, I think Graham gave him a platform, which he didn't. He had like 3 followers before, and now this dude has a ton. So I mean, he could have just ignored him altogether, and then the guy still would have had 3 people following him.
You can read people when they're overstimulated, over-identified with ideas. Like Flint Dibble, he's like a manic lunatic and he's always like lashing out. And it's like, I understand because uh, social media is a vicious, vicious place. And when you have any notoriety, you can imagine how much shit you catch, like my brother and I doing a show about giants on the History Channel. Um, and where I'm from, you get rolled in the back alley if you talk shit. It's like I was taken aback because I'm like, dude, um, my whole life or whatever, I had not encountered that kind of visceral reaction from the academic world. So that pissed me off for a while. But then it's like, I don't want to prove. a case. I don't want to be right. I want to evaluate. The first law of science is objectivity. That is a scientific method. So all this personality traits, all this defense, all these insults, that's ego.
Yeah.
Into your case that this is a maximum security archonic prison where basically our divine nature is being harvested. That is what the Gnostics would say. And our beings like us have dropped into this supermax prison to raise the consciousness, to raise the energetic state, to break these old patterns. And that's what all the mystics say. That's I studied the Course in Miracles, Ramana Maharshi, all the non-dualists, and it's just like you are eternal, you are divine. Nothing you do in the matrix adds or subtracts to your incredible state of permanence and eternity. But you are here temporarily in time and space to help break out of this prison. And the way you do it is to forgive, is to be kind, is to be helpful. So all that egoic shit is poison, and it is of a dark nature. It's malevolent, it's satanic, and that's why we are here. To your point, and that's why psychics and metaphysically oriented people are worth listening to.
Here,
Yep.
here. I agree.
I know it's real. I've witnessed some stuff that I'll share on a later podcast, but there's a reason why I went back to study the Bible. I got scared into it because I saw some stuff. We'll talk about that one of these days, but I'm thoroughly convinced that there's more than just this meat suit. And, it makes you wonder why they don't talk about energy and why they don't talk about the spirit and why they don't talk about, our bodies being electromagnetic. Like, that's a whole nother thing there. That's part of our holistic being and our holistic health. Like, shouldn't we be focusing a little bit on that? But no, you get called a quack. But there's all kinds of studies out there that show, biofeedback coming from, out to 9 feet from us. I think it was like the Heart Math Institute or someone
Yeah.
measured that stuff. So
And there's the morphogenetic field with Rupert Sheldrake that has some interesting stuff. And The Body Electric is an amazing book too, where they
Yeah,
basically
it's
read
funny. I read all those
rumors.
books.
Yeah, that's good stuff. But I mean, what I really like about y'all and like doing this book for you guys and stuff is I think the difference is like, a lot of times people within academia that I've noticed, they do like focus macro, they focus very much on just this one site or just this one thing. And I don't think there's enough people doing macro things. Like you guys are putting cross-cultural reference, like you're finding all the six-fingered references globally, like that you possibly can, and building a story off of that, or building building a data set and an evidence. I mean, it's the same with like, I'm obsessed with the nubs, like I have a big database going. Someday I'm planning on finishing my book about where all nubs are found, and like, I mean, there's no one panacea like explanation for everything of them because they're on top of pillars, bottom of pillars, on stadiums, on tombs, on like bedrock. Like they're crazy everywhere, and they don't really make sense. But the thing that's interesting is they're global, and the thing that you guys you're finding another weird global anomaly and pinpointing that for everybody in a data set. And I think this is like macro of thinking, and that actually helps the collective kind of expand, like, oh, maybe there is there's something collective that was happening before we were being told there was. And that's cool. Lots more of that needs to be happening.
Yeah.
sure.
No, that's a good point. That's that global pattern recognition is, where I feel like that's the easiest recognizable thing for the masses to see. Just like the gods that show up around the earth and teach the arts of civilization, they're all brother and sister, husband and wife, self-fertilizing androgens that are amphibious. Oannes, Fushi, the Ogdoad, and so you have all these beings that show up around the world, but they have all these specific traits and they have these orientations. Like I said, they're all brother, like Viracocha, Mamacocha, Fuxi Nuwa in China, Olacunya Maya in West Africa. But they're all self-fertilizing. They're all amphibious, like the Nomo of the Dogon people. They're self-fertilizing androgens, which is like, whoa. Even the Ogdoad on the temple of Horus on the walls of Edfu, the building text, 3 different passages talk about the self-fertilizing nature of the amphibious ogdoad. It's like, whoa, that is very, very specific. So that is what, we have seen in this book. I'm definitely on the spectrum. It's like I can remember massive amounts of information, but I can't take my care of my basic needs. But I can see like patterns everywhere, and that's what Greg and I have done in weaving the story together. Is it's the most easily recognizable kind of idea that people can like. It's like there's a story here that there has to be, and then when people push back against it or they shit on the idea, it wakes people up to like, why should I trust this guy? Why should I trust the anthropologist who said there's nothing to see with elongated skulls, for instance?
Well,
Yeah.
okay, so tell us about when you're like, where can people find this book? Like, give me the spiel, like where they can find you guys.
So there's an ebook
Greg?
live right now on Amazon. We're receiving the proofs of the book on Monday, so that those books should be out on Amazon here soon in paperback, and we'll do another edition with a hardcover. But right now, you can get the ebook. Just look up fingerprints. I mean, sorry, hey Graham, footprints of the gods by Jim Vieira and Greg Maestro. You'll see it pop right up. It's got a really cool title. It's got a ziggurat in the background with a bunch of footprints leading up to it, going from dark to light. Yeah, it's definitely a pleasure putting that together. And I forgot to mention one of the things that did draw me to this is, I'll make it quick too. When I was living in San Diego, I met someone who I don't know why, but people come to me thinking that they're aliens and they want to talk to me. But this guy thought he was an alien, and he showed me the scars on his hands and his feet where he had his extra digit removed from his hands and his feet. Not just him, his brother too. So when Jim approached me, that hit me, and I was like, man, I remember standing out, having a smoke with this dude and a beer, and he was just telling me how, he's thought he's been an alien his whole life, and him and his brother both had him removing their kids. So I don't know.
That's pretty interesting, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those weird synchronicity type deals.
Right. That's like a nudge in the, hey, you
Yes.
need to get in that direction. And I will link everything below. It's
Oh
all
yeah,
in
Jim
the
Vieira.
description.
I'm sorry, jimvieira.com. My bad, Nikki. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah.
You go to Jim's website and look at the book too.
Cool.
Yeah,
All right, you guys. Well,
I'm speak. Okay.
is there anything I didn't ask you or say that you guys want to put in about like a little boom?
No, just a nice big thank you to
I'll,
you for having us
I'll get a
on.
quick story.
Okay.
Um,
Very quick story.
my production team and I write all the scripts when we pitch shows. We were going to do, my brother and I are going to do like a Lewis and Clark show. We made it to like the final round with Discovery Channel and History for a couple of shows. We obviously did Search for the Lost Giants. We did several Roanoke specials for history, but we had a pitch with me, Hugh, and my brother called Megalith Men, and we were going to track the origin of the megalith builders around the world. So we'd go to Orkney, we dive off the coast of Sicily, where there's a 10,000-year-old, 40-foot long megalith that they found a couple of years back, on and on and on. We would end up in Karahan Tepe and Gobekli Tepe. In episode one, the script I wrote was that we would excavate at Karahan Tepe, the sister site of Gobekli Tepe, like 20 miles away. Hugh knew the landowner at the time. He had been there. You could see a couple T-shaped pillars sticking out. For anybody who doesn't know, this is a 12,000-year-old Tas Templar civilization. So we were going to hire a Turkish archaeological team to dig with us with the intent purpose of finding statues with extra digits. Now, we didn't get the show. We didn't get picked up for some reason. And Professor Carroll stepped in, excavated Karahan Tepe like a couple of years later, and they found the 16-fingered statue, the extra digited statue that I wrote about, that I pitched to Discovery. We write about this in the book, and it's kind of a bummer. Could you imagine? We're doing the show, episode one, we excavate,
Yeah,
and we find
seriously.
this. But that showed me that I was on the right path. That there is in real time around the world, there are more of these finds corroborating this bizarre story, and that's what I feel is that is like synchronistically guided, because I'm at home more with like megaliths And I started off kind of an orthodox researcher, very kind of by the book, and I expanded into this wild topic of giants, which most people say that's childish, that's impossible, that's silly. But I am compelled to continue to dig into the subject. And now, after this book, now more than ever, it used to be worthy of further investigation. Now I am thoroughly convinced there is a story here and there's a reality to giants. And I'm the dude in that chair, I mean, that table that says, change my mind. That's where I'm at right
Giants
now.
were real. Convince me otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah.
Change my mind. I love it. All right, you guys. Well, this was really a great conversation. I had a lot of fun, and I will have to have you on again on your next books. Can't wait. Yeah, and
Nice.
I'm also really excited for this to come out as like a TV, or you're almost making a little series about it, actually, which is cool.
Yeah, yeah, we're excited.
Absolutely.
And thank you so much, Nikki, for having us on.
Okay, and Greg, what is he has a really cool new project too, so tell me about that.
Yeah, so you can go to theexplorershandbook.com. We're getting ready to launch our first version of this app that gives you an augmented reality viewer where you can hone in on different findings from different explorers. And it has all the details in it that you would expect, plus a lot more, like, the terrain. Do you have to get there by bike, by foot? Is there medicine nearby? Are the hospitals crappy? Is the food good? So everyone gets to leave a little note about what they experienced while they were there. But not only that, it gives you an augmented reality viewer. So when you start getting close, it brings you to a pin. So everybody can put their own pin there, their own photos, their own videos, and other explorers can come see what you've done. And everyone gets to collaborate too. So that's going to be live here real soon. That's theexplorershandbook.com. And then if anyone just wants to know a little bit more about me, that's gregmaestro.com.
Perfect. Awesome. I'm totally going to look into that. That's like right up my alley. Okay. All right. Jim's doing an Egyptian tour in October that's with the Edgar Casey Foundation thing. And that should be, if you guys are looking to go to Egypt soon, this is who you should go with. So tell them the tour.
Late October, early November, leading a tour with the Edgar Casey ARE with Laura Hoff, the librarian. So it's a tour of Egypt with kind of a Casey-centric orientation, kind of a meditative, metaphysical minded tour. So if that's your cup of tea, I would highly recommend it. And yeah, Egypt, as you know, is a wild place, and Casey's readings are pretty astounding.
Cool. Perfect. All right, you guys. We'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Take care, Nikki.
Okay. Bye.